broadcasting live from Houston, from the space city to the world. You are watching NowMedia Television.
Welcome to Power CEOs, the truth behind the business. I'm Jen Gode, your fearless host, investor, entrepreneur, and business coach. Why are we here? Because I believe that iron sharpens iron. And when we come together with successful entrepreneurs and investors, and we share what's working in business, and maybe even some of what's not, what happens is we all learn and grow, and together we're able to elevate our businesses. The ripple of that impacts not only ourselves and our families, our teams and their families, but also our communities and our world. I'm really excited to be here today. I am in studio with a fellow entrepreneur and photographer extraordinaire, founder of her own photography business, Tara Flannery. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Jen. It's so great to be here.
And so, Tara, photography has been something you've done for quite some time. Talk to me a little bit about how is it to be an entrepreneur in this space and how has that evolved over time?
So I will tell you the photography industry is very competitive. I started about 12 years ago. I started photographing anything and everything. If somebody would pay me to do a job, I would do it. I figured it out along the way. I don't have any formal training in photography. I'm pretty much self-taught. There is an enormous amount of resources out there for photographers and people interested in photography to really learn and educate themselves in the industry. So that's what I did.
So the school of hard knocks, the school of real life, figuring it out along the way, that's really and truly a lot of what we do as entrepreneurs as well, because while we can get an MBA or we can learn the academic side of things, by the time we learn it in a book, it's already evolved in the business world. And so it's very similar for us. And so how has photography evolved over the years? Because 12 years is a long time. Technology has changed. What have you seen in the industry?
Absolutely. So I never was a film photographer. My dad was. And so there's definitely that. We moved from film to digital. We moved from processing in a dark room to Photoshop. I've been using Photoshop as a tool for all these 12 years and even longer. And you just have to stay on top of that technology, learn the tools, use them, and just consistently train yourself on those tools.
So talk to me. You've been doing this for a long time, and one of the things that I know you do is branding photography for businesses. And over the years, what does headshots don't look today the same as they did, 10 years ago. I remember when it was stare straight, like a mug shot almost back in the day. So talk to me about how that has evolved from an aesthetic standpoint, and personal branding and business branding has become such a big part of business, especially in the last several years. How has that evolved in your branding photography?
So branding sessions are extremely popular right now. So we've moved from that static headshot, which is still important for profile photos, business cards, things like that. That's definitely a tool that we still need, but moving into a branding session means we are showing clients and customers what it looks like to work with us. So we're in our own space. We're doing things in the business that shows potential customers exactly what it looks like to work with us. And I think they feel more confident in kind of knowing us before we even meet them, before they step through the door, even if that's a virtual door.
And one of the reasons that I brought you on is because one of the things I've noticed about your portfolio in particular, and I know some of the people who you've done the photos for, I've watched you, I've seen the work, is somehow you managed to capture the personality of the person you're photographing, whether it's senior portraits or like family photos or branding photos. You seem to capture the personality, if you will, and that's so important in business as well. We want to kind of have a feel for what we're getting, and that image speaks 1,000 words. So how are you able to find that? Like, talk to us about the behind the scenes sneak peek. Like, how do you find that personality, and what do you do before and during your session that brings that out, because you capture their essence, like the essence of who they are so well?
Thank you. So most people don't like to have their photo taken. A lot of people are really anxious and really nervous before their session. I just try to meet them where they are. It's really important for me to listen and to just be there to understand where they are, understand their business, and just really set them at ease. I'm goofy. I'm a real person, so I hope that they see that. And as we talk, as we get to know each other, those first few photos may be, a little bit more tense, but as we go along through the session, people just start to relax and they feel more comfortable with me, with the whole process. And I think that comfort is what lets their personality really shine through. So.
That's fantastic. And, it's something that's so important is we have to be relaxed in video too. It's just like in the studio, like we were
Right.
talking about, okay, there's so many things that go on behind the scenes.
Right.
So, how did you develop that skill set? Like, what does that feel like as an internal growth? Was there something that changed in you that helped you to relax your clients in a way that they're able to relate? Is that, like, talk to me about that inner side of the growth in your development.
So probably when I first started out, I would be nervous before sessions, and that probably made me a little bit more reserved. So I think the more confident that I am in my processes, that has allowed me to put them at ease more. If I'm confident, I know what I'm doing. I know lighting and posing and all those things that go together to make that image. I'm able to just kind of welcome them into that space and kind of put them at ease a little bit too.
That's so fantastic. And while we're on the topic of your learning and your growth, we're all learning and growing in business right now because business is evolving more rapidly than ever before. It is really changing. Technology is changing faster than ever before. Has anything kind of really hit you by surprise in business, and especially as we've experienced so many changes in the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I think where you're going is AI technology. That is coming. I mean, it's already here. And I think that will definitely change the way that we operate as photographers, any digital media, really. Right now it's going to be the tools that we're using. We're going to incorporate AI into that. I'm sure everybody has seen the AI headshots. Had a friend that had one that came out with 3 arms, and so that's not good. But there has to be a fair amount of good imagery that comes in to put into AI. AI can't create something that's never been there, right?
Yep.
So AI is not going to create product photos that have never been created. So there's still a need for professional photography, and we're just going to use AI to our best advantage to help things run more efficiently, things like that.
Right, and that's with anything, with AI, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have quality images going in, then it can only work with what is given. So talk to me about how that's evolving. Are you looking differently at lighting? Are you looking differently as you move through this learning process, knowing that that's on the other side and maybe helping you facilitate with your edits or whatnot? Or are we playing with different backgrounds or settings? Like, what does that look like as a photographer? I really love the sneak peek behind the scenes, by the way.
Yes. So I think that lighting is probably going to be the same. And lighting is something that sets professional photography apart, I think. You can take selfies with your cell phone, and but the lighting is not there, maybe. So I think the lighting is going to stay the same. I think what we're going to see is the change in the tools. So Photoshop is already incorporating some AI technology so that, if you have a headshot and you want to put that person in a scene, for example, it's going to be easier with AI. They already have it in a beta version, and so down the line it's going to be easier to kind of insert those virtual backgrounds or scenes. So we're just going to use that AI technology in the tools.
And so as you're learning and you're adapting, one of the things we were talking about before the show was how important education is, and always learning, growing, and staying ahead of the curve in any industry. It's like this in any industry. And so what are you doing so that you're ensuring you're always ahead of the curve? Because it seems that you're integrating, you're already playing with some of the things that are newer out there. How do you keep yourself ahead of the game and the trends that are coming, like riding the trends, sorting and sifting between what's the garbage and what's actually going to move forward.
Right. So education is so important. There are several photographers that I follow, so there's resources online for sure. But I'm also part of my national, state, and local photography organizations. The Professional Photographers of America puts on an annual conference. So, be part of those trade and industry organizations because they're going to provide the education. With PPA, go to the conference, you select instructors, that you want to learn from, and that's how you keep that education up. The state organization is Texas PPA. There's a week-long conference, and you deep dive with one instructor. You learn everything about their processes, how they operate, their kids' names and their favorite ice cream flavor by the end of the week. So you really get, just really hands-on and a deep dive into that photographer.
What comes to mind so strongly is there's always a learning, there's always a growing, and implementation is everything. So how do you take that? And I think this is very valuable for everybody listening at home, no matter what industry you're in. There's knowledge and there's education and then there's implementation. So how do you understand, or how do you take in the education and then you say, okay, this is the most important thing for me to do here, then this next, then this next? How do you prioritize in that way? And what would you recommend to the people who are listening if they're getting photography or other industry, if they're getting knowledge, they're learning, how do they sort of decide what makes the most sense to implement first?
Right. So the conference that I was just talking about, the week-long conference, all this education is great, but if you don't implement it, why did you pay to even go?
That's right.
So you have to make your list, make your list of takeaways and then prioritize them just to make sure, you can't tackle 10 things all at once. You've got to prioritize and identify what is most important, do that, and just work down your list. I just think you have to do that.
Yeah, something that we do with our prioritization is always look at it and I say, what one thing, if I do that first, makes everything else easier, or it kind of waterfalls. So I love that you've kind of brought that up because it is so true. Like we take in, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of changes in business. Which trends do we hop on? AI is coming. We can't avoid it. It's going to be here. Right. It's going to impact our business. So what AI, how do we integrate, and what's going to be make the most sense for our business, for our industry, and as we move forward. So I really love that you take that approach. And so if you were to give someone who's thinking about jumping into entrepreneurship today, because you've been in it for a while and you've seen all these changes, if somebody is watching and they're like, I think I want to start a business today, and they haven't dipped their toe in yet, what would you share with them as something that they ought to do before they get started?
Just hook up with another entrepreneur. Join your local chamber, join an organization that has entrepreneurs that you can, it doesn't matter if they're in your industry or in a different industry, just watch and observe and, figure out kind of what's working, what's not, and then dive into your industry specific organizations and, find a mentor. Our local photography guild has a mentorship program, and we love to connect seasoned photographers, those that have been in the business for 20, 30, 40 years with newer photographers, because, you can learn all this stuff on your own, but it's so much easier if you have someone to guide you and even just ask those basic questions of how do I set up an LLC? How do I, do this or that or whatever.
Absolutely. And, I'm a business coach, and the same applies. I have coaches because they cut the time.
Yes.
Like, why are we going to reinvent the wheel and do all the things and,
Yes.
and make all the same mistakes? We might as well hire somebody who's already there, who's already been there, who's ahead of us, that can cut the time to our success, because why should we go and make all the same mistakes? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Great. Awesome. And so kind of in the same vein, I want to talk a little bit about what you have experienced and you've learned along the way. And if you could go back to the version of you who was just starting out, I mean, the Tara who was like, okay, I'm going to do this for myself, I'm going to go into business for myself, and give her one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh gosh, just to value myself. We all start somewhere, and pricing is a difficult thing to figure out, but I wish that I had just valued myself and, believed in myself a little bit more. You can't start out at the bottom and rise to the very top. You have to value your time. You have to figure out what your cost of doing business is, and really put in the hard work to build your pricing and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So value yourself. I think that's amazing. Believe in yourself and don't let anybody else get in your way. Something that we like to talk about is we're not in competition with anybody other than ourselves.
That's right.
And so, if we are focused on us and where do we fit in the marketplace, and we find the gaps in the marketplace, then we can kind of control that piece of the market. And so that gets me to, your unique value propositions. We said this earlier, you're in a very, very crowded market. And so as you are moving through and you're changing, you're evolving as a business owner, how have you established your differentiating factor? Because setting that unique selling proposition, having that differentiation, solving a unique problem that your competition is not, is what differentiates you and it gets you noticed. So how do you actually determine what is your differentiating factor and how do you stay relevant and serving in that way?
So I feel like I've distinguished myself from some of the competition just by certifications and things that I've been awarded. I just found out that I have earned enough merits for my Master of Photography certification through PPA. So
congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you. I've been working on it for several years. So I think that is one way to separate yourself, is to that continuing education, certifications, awards, and things like that.
And being an expert in your space. Like, let's be real. If you are a master level, you're elevated above a lot of others. You become that expert and that authority in your space.
Right. And then beyond that, like you said, I feel like, we're in business to solve customers' problems. Mm-hmm. So it's really about finding out what that customer's problem is and then serving that need. So, whether it's headshots or branding, family portraits, high school seniors, we're just meeting the customers where they are and fulfilling that need. It's small businesses through, very large corporations need, all that imagery because of our digital age. So there's just a constant need for images.
So talk to me about that, because I've been in business and I've been in careers for a very, very long time. And once upon a time, you could get a headshot and use it for like 10, 15 years in the age before social media. Yes, I'm dating myself, but what is it that we have to be considering as entrepreneurs from an image standpoint? How often should we update our brand image or our profile image or the professional headshot versus the lifestyle headshot? Like, is there kind of a formula or a secret to success there?
It's funny. Doctors are really bad about using a headshot that's 30 years old, and they walk into a patient's room and the patient's very surprised about who they're seeing. So definitely every couple of years I would update that headshot just to make sure it's current and, you're being truthful with your clientele. Before you could get away with just a headshot and that could be it. But with social media and just all of the needs today of, putting your image out there, social media is just eating up those images. And I think we're moving away from stock imagery. People can identify a stock image, pretty well these days. Let's move towards more authenticity and do that branding session so that it's your products that we're showing, it's your staff, it's your people on your website, on your social media that are showing those behind the scenes and what's happening in your company.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. And even the video, like in this age, video is so incredibly important. Over 65% of all sales come from video content. So if we're not putting ourselves out there, if we don't have at least our photograph out there, people are just like, nope, sorry, I don't know who is behind this company brand. I'm not interested, especially in small business. But then, also getting comfortable with the video content and some of the other things is so incredibly important. And so if we have, and I'm just going to say, I've gone to conferences where I've known people in the social media, like the LinkedIn bubble. And when I go, I don't recognize them because I don't know when it was taken or it was so heavily doctored of an image that you
Right.
cannot actually recognize the person. Can you speak a little bit about that? Because that happens also when you take professional photography.
Yeah.
So should we be dolling ourselves up as should we be doing something different when we go to brand photography, or should we be showing up with the exact same kind of hair, makeup, et cetera, that we would do, if we were to do a presentation in a boardroom, for example?
Yeah, that's a great point. So one of my taglines is, the very best you is what I do. And the idea there is, I want you to look like you on your very best, well-rested, well-hydrated day. So we're going to do hair and makeup, but we're not going to go crazy. And we're going to do a little bit of Photoshop to, maybe smooth some things out, brighten teeth and eyes. But we're not going to go crazy, and we're not going to look like somebody else, right? That Brad Pitt filter is just not available anymore. So I really, I want you to look like you, because that is authentic. To me, authenticity is our greatest goal in photography. So, I want you to look like you. I don't want you to look like a plastic, Barbie doll version of you. So that's always my goal.
And like what you started on with the AI imagery, like a lot of the avatars are very, very kind of extra polished, I'm going to just say, and they don't necessarily look the same as
Right.
what we do in real life. And that's really important because it goes to building trust, right?
Yes.
Online, we want to be building trust. We want to be showing up. And so that when we show up at the meeting or whatever, in person or on the Zoom even, we want to make sure that we're looking like we do online for that continuity of brand. So that's
Right.
really fascinating and so important. Thank you for sharing that. We do have to take a brief break, but we'll be back after these messages, and you're going to want to stick around because Tara is going to give us a lesson in how to pose to look your best for your next headshots. See you in a few.